Hi, I'm Frank Samet. I'm the Executive Director of Central Coast Food Alliance. The Central Coast Food Alliance is an organisation that supports food processing and manufacturing in the region. It really strives to engage with the food companies here to drive innovation, to drive industry growth, and part of that is driving jobs growth as well. We have an opportunity to really set the scene for the food industry in New South Wales. We are well recognised throughout the state as a leading cluster. One of our key strategies in terms of the Food Alliance is the talent pool that's coming into the industry. As we know, just generally in manufacturing, the new age of manufacturing is not really recognised or understood by the general community. The level of technology, automation, and that's the same in the food industry. And so we really wanted to engage with schools and the tertiary sector as well to bring that industry component into their curriculum, because it's so important to understand the opportunities that exist within the food industry. So we've been working very closely the last 4 years with the PTEC program, which is an IBM program, and working on the sidelines with one of our local high schools and with a couple of our industry partners. Look, I'm here now with Peter Crane, who's been a long-term player in the food industry, and we're going to discuss what some of the outcomes for industry are with this education program. So Peter, your experience in the last 3 or 4 years in particular have been with Wyong High School and with a major food company in the region. Tell us what you think the students got out of it.
It's been really incredible to watch, Frank. So I know that when we kicked off the program, the area of food science, people had, or maybe students had a really narrow understanding of what the job and career opportunities were within food science.
Yep.
But when you brought them on site, when you took them in the kitchen, when they walked through the factory, and when they spoke to different members of the team, you could just see worlds opening up. They could see a whole range of different intersection points within that industry where they could have really great careers that they hadn't even imagined before they became part of the program.
Okay, that's great. So, and what about some of that technical stuff? I noticed when I was at Wyong High School one time for, I think it was Christmas in July, the students were actually working with your staff on particular issue, food safety issues and food product development issues. So maybe just talk a little bit about some of those learnings and why it's important to do that stuff.
I will. So, and you know too well, food is a lot more than just cooking and eating.
Yeah.
And particularly when you're talking about commercial food, there's a whole raft of science and really strong technical principles that underpin everything that we do, whether it's quality in terms of how it comes out or food safety. And as students were exposed to some of these, you could just see a whole different raft of thinking. But what we did is we actually went on site to Wyong High School. We worked alongside all of the students in that middle school range in the kitchen. The kitchen was chockers, but you could see real curiosity starting to grow. People asking, why do you do things that particular way, and what does that mean for the outcome? And then as we all sat down and shared food together, then another really important part of the program was that students and members of my team started to really connect. And one of the other benefits from this program, there's that functional piece in food science, but there's also that social piece and just students learning from the life skills of other guys in the team. And
part of the program also involved mentoring, so group mentoring. So, and how important is that?
Well, it's vitally important, but I think I wouldn't say the benefits there are only for the students. The members of my team, when I said, would you like to become a mentor for students at Wyong High School, he almost had to cut off the list because everybody wanted to be a part of it, because the benefits are just so tremendous. From the students' point of view, they've got somebody who's in the industry that they can talk to. How did you get there? What sort of things happened to you along the way? And they could see that careers are often not linear. You go in all sorts of directions, and they could see that any step forward is a good one. And also as they're starting to face into some of the challenges about what university course should I pick, and this feels like a really critical area, how am I going to get it right? Just being able to speak to people who've been through that gave them a really high level of assurance. From the members of my team perspective, being able to connect back into a younger generation, understand what are some of the challenges that they're facing, and feeling that they could provide, a sounding board or some guidance was tremendously rewarding, and you could see growth in the mentors and the mentees equally.
Okay, that's good. So let's lead on to the organisation. So what do you think the benefit is for the organisation, for now and longer term?
So there's a few things. One is that as a key member of the social community in this location, it's really important that big businesses are able to contribute something and give something back. So here was a way that that the business could just easily provide, some stimulus to encourage really high quality education outcomes, so they could connect in that way. Also, for members of the team, as I said, it really lifted their engagement. It felt like that they were doing something really purposeful, and it adds another dimension to their job, which does flow back into the way that they go about their work and the energy that they bring. And then I guess the last thing is that we want to make sure that we've got really great talent coming through on the Central Coast. So you could say that we draw from a pretty narrow pool, but as you start to expose more students to the opportunities that exist within the industry, that pool that you draw from dramatically grows. And so the talent that you've got, the diversity of thinking, the difference that's going to come into our organisation as a result of the development that you play, that's fantastic. That's a really great outcome.
That's great. And of course there's the teachers. So and what do you think the teachers have got out of this process?
So I think that teachers, just as much as the students, start to understand the different range of career opportunities that exist within the food industry as well. It's really opened up their eyes to different possibilities. And just as we've got students coming into the business with eyes wide open and really blown away by what they see, you see the same thing happening with the teachers who come in thinking, wow, I just didn't know that all of this stuff happened. When I'm putting food on the table, what's all behind it? So they start to know, and then they talk to their students in a different way. But I think the other thing that's been really fascinating, I've heard from a number of teachers that mentor relationship that you have with the students is a very different one than the teachers have with their students. And when you're sitting down with one or two or three students and having those conversations about life, it's very personal. There's a lot of vulnerability shown by the students, and you get into conversations that the teacher said they just can't because of the nature of the teacher-student relationship that they have. So I think they found that was a really great complement to the work that the teachers are doing.
I suppose too there's probably a little bit of mentoring with the teachers as well, because there is some teachers don't have that industry experience, and so what an industry player brings to the table is that industry experience, not just for the kids but also for the teachers. So when you're not there, they still have that sort of framework, if you like, of industry and what it's looking for.
Well, definitely, but I also think there's a bit of mentoring going in the other way too. So you see, like, being a teacher is not easy, and you've got a class of however many, and you've got to make sure that you can engage with everyone. And for us, starting to really appreciate the contribution that they make in sharing what's really important for the future of these kids, it was a good eye-opener for us as well.
That's great. And we know that the parents have a big influence on where students or where their kids end up in terms of education.
Yeah. So
with your experience, what do you think, you say this particular program, what have you seen from a parent perspective? I know it might be limited, but is there something there you feel that has added some benefit to at least so students can get support from their parents in a career path that they select?
Yeah, 100%. So just as students start to see new educational opportunities through the program, the parents are seeing those as well, and they start to work together. So there becomes real support for students to go on and pursue an education to create a different educational outcome than the ones that they maybe had in mind from the generations that they were in and the ones before them. And what's really rewarding is that we're seeing a number of examples now where students are going on to pursue a tertiary education that they'd never considered, and that in fact that family had never considered. These students coming through, in many cases they're the first one of that family line that's ever pursued a tertiary education, and that's going to be a change. It's going to go on for the next generation and the next. So it's incredibly rewarding.
And it's important for the Central Coast because we are one of the regions that has a very low engagement level in terms of our tertiary education. So it's great. Any other comments you'd like to put forward, in terms of why other industry partners should be involved?
As a member of this community, I think you've got a responsibility to make a contribution to it and ensure that it's really great. And we all want to get involved and do things for social good. But it can often be really difficult to find, how can I do that? It's difficult to find a way to hook into it. And this program gives many different organisations a chance to really contribute strongly for a very big future outcome. I'd highly recommend it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's about, at the end of the day, jobs for our local people, local kids.
Absolutely.
And if they can get engaged in this food industry, which is quite predominant in this region, then there's great opportunities for them. So, okay, thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Frank.
So we've just heard from one of our industry partners in terms of what the benefits are, not only for the students but also for industry. So the reason why we're doing this, it is about creating that pipeline of talent to come into the industry, creating that awareness, making the kids understand that there is a real career in the food industry. And we've just focused on manufacturing, processing, but you've got the agribusiness side of things as well, the agriculture, the horticulture. The opportunities are just wide-ranging. And if I look at my own career, I started off as an engineer, and I've worked in production, I've worked in R&D, I've worked in sales, all in the food industry. So, the opportunity is there, and it's so important to be able to bring our young people along the journey to be able to grow our industry here in the region. And ultimately, like I said earlier in the piece, it's about creating those jobs and not losing the talent out of the region. So I've talked about the future in terms of the people and the students. The future for the industry, it's high tech, digitisation, the Internet of Things, all these things that you hear in other industries is the same in manufacturing and food processing. And it's only going to get more and more technically based. But there are roles that are technical and non-technical, and they support each other. So for us, we see the future in growing industry, particularly coming through the smaller businesses, the SMEs, and they're going to be looking for talent, and as they grow, because that's where a lot of the jobs growth is coming from today, and will continue to be in the future. And that's where we need to connect the industry with the students and to take those opportunities as they arise, and that's what our role is.